Bobby, welcome to the show. It's great to be talking.
Thank you. Great for you to have me, John.
Yeah,
Good to be
for
here.
sure. The legend, Bobby C. Lee. So really excited to have you on. Obviously, pioneer, a legend in Bitcoin overall, and then early in China. Obviously, want to start here with obviously today, the last couple of weeks, we've seen some momentum building, and you have tweeted or resurfaced one of your old tweets about price predictions. So I wanted to start off with just kind of a fun topic, price predictions. How are you thinking about this next cycle that's coming up? Where do you think we are now?
Sure. Well, so so I guess you must be referring to the tweet I made in December of 2018.
Right.
So we're Bitcoin just literally crossed $10,000 in the last 24 hours. And this time it feels a little bit different. Obviously, Bitcoin has crossed into $10,000, I think multiple times in the last 3-4 years. The first time it happened in probably either late November or early December of 2017. So 2.5 years ago, Bitcoin crossed into $10,000 for the first time. And then, of course, after the big rise up to $20,000 in December, it went back down. And then 2018 was like a bear market year. 2019 was very slow. And I think 2019, we crossed into 10,000 and we traced back down. And then we started the year, under $10,000, right? And we're crossing into again. And this time it feels different because of the global macroeconomic situation with the pandemic all over the world, with all the money printing, with a huge asset bubble, rising prices. I mean, stocks are going up like crazy, especially certain tech stocks, and also the gold, right? Gold has really crossed into an all-time high as well. So just in the last 48 hours, gold broke its all-time high of $1,920 that was set in 2011. And prior to that, the record was about $800 set in the 1980s, in the early 1980s, around there. So now, we've seen gold, rally up in 1980 and then rally up again in 2011. And 2011 was right after the financial crisis. And now, very quickly, gold has rallied up again. I think I want to check.
A little bit more of a lag back then, it seemed like.
Yeah, let's see if it hit 2,000 yet. I think it's at, what is it at? It's at $1,940, $1,942 right now. So it's exciting. It's exciting to see gold go up. And obviously a lot of the altcoins have gone up a lot. I mean, Bitcoin maybe is a little bit slow compared to them, but it's good to see Bitcoin back above $10,000. And what I tweeted in December 2018 was that if you follow the pattern, I've been in Bitcoin since 2011. So for the last 9 years, I've seen this pattern over and over again. It's almost getting boring. Where after all-time high, it would take a year and would really crash down, go down to and lose 85% of its value. So if you look at that, happened in 2013, happened in 2017, and now now if it happens again, then what we're saying is that the low was $2,500, $3,000, and then the rebound takes another year and a half, 2 years, and again it's right after the block halving. So there's a chance, if history repeats itself, I'm thinking there's a chance that Bitcoin's rally could start now or at the end of 2020 this year. And then all of next year could be a long rally or a short rally. And then it could end up, 5, 10, or 20 times the all-time high. So 5 times the all-time high would be $100,000. 20 times, 10 times would be $200,000. And if you do the 20, 25 times, it could be $500,000. So my top peak for this next rally between $200,000 and $500,000, and then it'll take another rally, probably another 4 to 6 years later, to take it to $1 million. That's my take.
Yeah, and these kind of cycles around halvings, people who've been in Bitcoin a long time seem to kind of trend towards that way of thinking about price too. And you think we're on the upswing now, essentially, in that next cycle?
Well, we don't know until it's all over whether this is the final the real bull run or not, right? So, but this time it feels different just because of the macroeconomic situation. There's so much money around, right? The reason prices go up is because of frankly speaking, the value of the US dollar is going down. So it doesn't take a genius to figure out if you keep printing money, then the price of everything goes up, even if the fundamental value didn't change, but the measurement price goes up, right? So that's something normal people have a very hard time getting their head around. They think that prices go up, it means the value goes up. But to me, pricing going up and the value going up is two different things.
Right. Yeah. And you mentioned kind of getting into Bitcoin in 2011. So the last couple of cycles that we've seen, maybe looking back at like 2013 and then 2017, can you give us some context for where you were then, and maybe how your thinking on Bitcoin has evolved or become more nuanced in different ways? Just kind of take us through your thinking on Bitcoin in those last three cycles, if we call this the third.
Yeah, sure. So this is technically not the third. So if you look at if this is the third cycle, you're talking about the second cycle, which is 2017 peak December, and then the first cycle was 2013 December peak of $1,200. Technically, that's not even the first, right? So before that $1,200 peak, it actually peaked at $165 in June of 2013, and before that, it sort of peaked out at I think 26 or between 20 and $34. Yeah, $32 sounds right. $32 in April of 2013, and before that it was 20 some dollars before that. But basically, back then back then it was a hobby. I wasn't full time into Bitcoin back in 2011 2012. So I was curious to see Bitcoin trading $10 sideways for 6 months, go to 20, and then go back down to $1 or $2, and then come back roaring up to be $20, right? So, and even before I got into Bitcoin peaked, went above $1, the dollar parity. That was before I got it. Okay. So that was a big deal, right? That dollar parity for Bitcoin. So those are the really, really old timers who were there in 2009, 2010. So the cycles have been numerous. Now the time between the cycles can change. Back then it was much less liquidity. The halvings didn't make a lot of difference. It was more about discovering value and all that stuff. So the first real big run up when the whole world was watching was 2013. At the time I was running the Chinese exchange BTCChina.com, and it was amazing. It was just like we saw that cycle starting from the summer of 2013. People started buying Bitcoin. There were large amounts of new users opening accounts, depositing money, buying Bitcoin, and then there's a huge sort of swarm army of traders, people who are trading it to sort of get the edge, right? Day trading essentially. So the 2013 really kicked off the trading market for.
Yeah, and you're running an exchange at that point. Pretty exciting thing to be doing. Yeah. First in China.
We're exactly BTC China. That got started in June of 2011, the very first one in China. Yeah, and then of course the 2017 bull run. We actually closed our Chinese exchange in September of that year. So the bull run happened despite China shutting off all its exchanges. It happened, starting in October, November. But it was very exciting to see it cross over $1,200 into $2,000. I remember when it crossed $2,000, it was like crazy. It's like gold crossing $2,000 today, right? Kind of like that perspective. And then 2, 3, 4, and then 4, 5,000 was a blur. It just went up so fast. And then by November it was 7,000, and then it was 8, 9,000. I think 9,000. I don't think Bitcoin spent any time in the $9,000 range. It just popped up into 10,000, and then it was like 10, 12, 15,000, 16,000, and then I think it spent a day or two in the 17, 18, 19,000, $20,000 range. So obviously, it's very compressed when it really does peak up.
You still have a business that operates partly out of China. Can you talk a little bit about how Bitcoin being seen in China has changed over those last 7 years, and kind of its importance also? You mentioned there was a lot of hoopla, a lot of hype around any government policy around Bitcoin, essentially through 2018 maybe, and that's maybe not as much of a price driver as it used to be. But talk a little bit about that kind of Bitcoin in China for the last 7 years, I guess.
Sure. So Bitcoin in China started out with mining, right? In 2011, I was mining, and I know there were a few other miners because the story was I was living in Shanghai in 2011 summertime, and that's when I started mining. And I would go to these stores trying to buy up the GPUs, these graphics cards, graphics coprocessor cards for the computer, for the PC. And almost every store I went to, they ran out. And the store owner would tell me, oh, someone else came and bought them all yesterday or 3 days ago. So I was a step slower. So I know someone was cornering the market for the graphics card at the time. So that's when BTC China launched. And I think the early traders were the miners, mining and selling for cash and hobbyists and so on. The real trading came in 2013, 2014. And of course, by 2016, 17, but in 2015, 16, there were a lot of actually what they call multi-level marketing scams. So there's a lot of these multi-MMM, like 3M, MMM was a famous Russian multi-level marketing scam that took a lot of people's money. And also by 16, 17, there's a lot of ICOs and tokens and altcoins. So those are the trends. And of course, this year it's DeFi and all that. So I guess every cycle we need a narrative. So that's what I was telling people, even though I don't necessarily have to believe in the narrative, but what I do know is I don't control the market, right? So I can't, even if I don't like the narrative, I can't put a stop to it, right? If there's enough people who want it, there's enough momentum and enough sort of reason to push it, then people do. And there are people who organize these narratives and push the narratives, and then they bring in a lot of people, and some people make money and some people lose money. So it's just
sure.
it's just the nature of life. Yeah, it's a little bit unfortunate that people have to lose money in the next cycle, but that's just the reality.
For sure. There's been a little bit of back and forth in a WeChat group that we're in about kind of that topic of narratives and how important the ICO narrative was in 2017, and now maybe DeFi is that narrative. You mentioned that narratives aren't the driver to you essentially, but there needs to be a story around it for maybe broader adoption. Any other thoughts on kind of this narrative, this cycle?
Yeah. So again, just to clarify my point, I'm not saying that we need a narrative for a bull cycle, but rather the bull cycle can only happen if there is a narrative, right? When there's no narrative, there can't be a bull market, right? People have to buy into something, and then their minds overpower them, and then that's what leads to the action, for the mass frenzy, buying action. And what is a bull market? A bull market is people just very excited, FOMO, right? Fear of missing out, rally. So people do that. So the current narrative, I think there's a few that I can, and again, we don't know until after the fact and point back to how that was the narrative. So since we're in the beginning, potentially in the beginning, so I think the potential narratives are DeFi, decentralized finance. Again, that's a very loaded term. Just like blockchain was a few years ago, people say, oh, everything blockchain. I think we got over that. And everything token, I think we got over that. So I think the current one is DeFi, decentralized finance, the idea that you could use decentralized, smart contracts, decentralized exchanges, decentralized platforms to either borrow money, give money, to get interest, get paid interest, or pay interest for loans and stuff like that, or to do atomic swaps. All these things have their sort of fun use cases, if you will. And to be honest, I'm not convinced yet, but I'm leaving my mind open to see how it's going to take off or not. But for the people out there who are less initiated, I can see them get really riled up for this and get excited and throw money in. Right. Sure. So when one of the coins, can double or go up 50% in a day, that pushes everything up, pushes ETH up, and then that subsequently pushes BTC up. Right. So that's what
it really does feel like it. It really does feel like the start here. But again, we won't know until hindsight. But it really does feel like.
Yeah. In fact, I was looking at the BTC price because that's what I care about. I think that's a main barometer for me. It went from 10,000 to almost 11,000. Let me check right now. Has a cross 11,000. And I'm thinking, I don't want it, like, as much as I'm excited that the rally might be there. Now it's $10,941 on CoinMarketCap. And I'm actually worried. I don't want it to go up that fast. But if it goes up that fast, it's gonna come crashing down even faster. So I would rather see a more sustained build up that goes up slowly. Just I was a little bit worried that it's reaching 11,000 so fast, just within a day, right? So it'd almost be better if it just go up a little bit slower. But we'll see. We'll see how the market behaves. Yeah. And then in terms of narratives, the other narratives, of course, the global macroeconomic situation, all the money printing all the stimulus packages in the United States, in Europe, in Asia, in China, Hong Kong, all these countries have stimulus packages. It just throws money into the hands of normal people. And of course, normal people spend it on food, on rent, and regular stuff, the middle income, the low income. But the reality, the sad reality is the rich may not be getting the handouts, but they're getting it through big government grants and loans and stuff like that. So the rich are actually getting a lot more money. And that's why the corporations are buying back their stock. That's why a lot of people are putting more money in stock. So that's why the P ratio is going up the roof. So you see asset prices rise. You see real estate prices rise because because interest rates are down, makes them more affordable. So, get a 30-year loan. It's much more affordable with lower interest rates. That's why prices are bid up. So real estate prices are up, stock prices are up, gold prices are up, and now crypto prices are also up.
For sure. And you touched on gold at the kind of beginning of this, and now gold, precious metals again here. Really, it's been a narrative of kind of gold bugs and it's a little too derogatory. People who appreciate gold for a long time, but we really are kind of seeing unprecedented circumstances right now.
Yeah, exactly.
Has being in China, spending a lot of time over there, has that given you any kind of different perspective?
Yeah, I've always been a gold bug. I've always been someone who appreciates the value of gold. I've been buying gold myself since 2003, so way before Bitcoin. And the reason is because gold is fundamentally the truest form of money. Okay, so call me old school, call me deranged, whatever you want, but I do believe gold is the original form of money. Okay, and the digital form of that would be Bitcoin. That's the closest thing. In some ways, physical gold is better than Bitcoin. There's some physical characteristics of gold, such that it's completely fireproof. It's like you cannot be destroyed. Even in the nuclear bomb goes off, the gold is still there. It may melt, it may change shape, but it's still there. Fundamentally, the gold is there. So that's what's really good about it. And I think the Chinese people see that too. So China and India have been countries where the population has been really big into buying gold over the years. So China as a country has built up its gold reserves. One day it will rival the United States Treasury's gold, stands at supposedly 8,000 tons of gold. So China's only at 1,000, 2,000 tons, but I think it could really go up in the coming years. And then for the people, they've been buying gold for the longest time, right? China, even if you look at historically, the emperors and all that in the dynasties, they have gold and silver, and those are all very strong units of wealth for their corporate treasury, for the government, for the kingdom, if you will. So I think that's happening again. I think just people in China are, the initiated who are technical, who are into crypto, they're buying crypto just in that same sense. Yeah.
Kind of another thing as we enter this next cycle, we think, and we're talking about kind of another order of magnitude, essentially, of growth with the 10x of Bitcoin's price. How does the industry mature here?
So for sure, I am convinced we're going to see Bitcoin go up another 10x in price, and likewise, I'm convinced for sure Bitcoin will see another 10x in participation. Meaning I think if you estimate how many people are owning Bitcoin, whether it's 10 million or close to 100 million, I think we're going to see 10x of that. So maybe 100 million to a billion people, and then after that, there's probably one more cycle to take it to the rest of the world. Okay. So this could take 20 years, right? So I'm here for the long haul. This could take a good 20 years, just like the internet took a good 20 years to mature. I perfectly fine. So after this happens, financial institutions will have to play a game with crypto. Like just recently, they announced that U.S. banks can now, for example, get into business of.
Is that how important is that in your mind?
I think that's great. I think that's very important. I think I was surprised it went about this way. But either way, it's good. But the reality, I was just commenting to your friend, like the reality, probably vast majority of banks are too dinosaur and too old to even dip their toes in this. A few sort of internet banks, a few sort of, of those more fast moving ones will start first offering depository services for crypto. And I think that's a great start. I think that's what we need. And this will also give the existing exchanges some competition, right, in terms of where you can store your crypto. So these will be licensed, regulated custodians of cryptocurrency. I think that's a great step. I think it's very, very important that it happens. And of course, I'm looking forward to the ETF trading from the SEC as well. So the U.S. thankfully is an open country, democratic, where the rules, where the people with the will can set the rules and the law and so on. So that I think when there's a will, there's a way, right? The expression. When the people want it, the laws will eventually allow for it. So there's a lot of good examples of that, and that's what I love about America is that sort of nation, is that sort of thing where the government is of the people and by the people for the people, right? So that's why our rules and laws will eventually cater to what we want as citizens, as residents of the country. So if people like Bitcoin, then eventually Bitcoin will be doable, whether it's for payments, whether it's for savings, whether it's for investments and all that stuff. Yeah.
BTCC used to have one of the largest mining pools, and you dealt a lot with mining hardware. Do you have any thoughts as someone who's been in that space in a big way on kind of where mining is trending, especially maybe geographically? Back then, you weren't exactly importing stuff because it was manufactured in China and you were setting it up there. Just any thoughts? Yeah.
Any thoughts so generally mining is great. If you think about it, I mean, if one thing, I think we forget about mining. It's just so much fun.
You kind of have a twinkle in your eye talking about it now.
Let me give you perspective. Okay, what we're saying that you can use computers, plug it in, run some program, and it can make money for you, right? Like that was just so ludicrous. We say that you could run a program and make money for you in the 1990s. That was ludicrous. Like how can that? The closest thing I did was running SETI at home. I don't know if you know, these are screensavers that would do the calculations, trying to find the alien life forms on SETI, search for extraterrestrials, right?
Okay.
So SETI at home ran that. But anyways, so modern mining, came with Bitcoin. And what's amazing is people, and of course, Chinese people are very entrepreneurial. They want to find, they'll pick up any penny they find on the ground, and they'll squeeze every penny out of every process, right? So it's just a hardworking attitude, a sort of no waste attitude of the Chinese people. I love it. So I myself did that, right? I mined Bitcoin in 2011 as a hobby, and now people don't do it just people still do it as a hobby, but more importantly, people do it at the industrial scale level. So they literally set up huge data centers and thousands of machines, with gigawatts of electricity pumping through to do 24/7 mining. And that's just very exciting. And I think obviously China still has a very large share, but the reality is mining will go to the country where electricity is cheap. So whether it's renewable electricity, whether it's geothermal, solar, or wind, right? That kind of stuff, or whichever place has nuclear electric power that can be done really cheaply. So that's where it's going to go. And the best part about mining is that any country can do it. Even if you have slightly more expensive electricity, you can still do it. So countries like Iran and North Korea, I know they're taboo countries. I know they're on the sanctions list. I know we can't do business with Iran and North Korea, but the reality, the fun thing is they are mining. They are mining Bitcoin, right? And to me, that's a great equalizer for the world, right? You don't have to be a country, resource-rich country where you have oil or gold or coal underground, right? You can be a country with none of that, and you could be a small island nation and have a good workforce. You have a lot of electricity. You could mine Bitcoin. So to me, that's and not just Bitcoin. You could mine Bitcoin and other proof of work cryptocurrencies. So that's very, very exciting. I think the next century will show that it's about intellect and not about what you're born with.
Yeah, with you on that. And then maybe any thoughts on kind of the current exchange landscape out there? Obviously, another business that you were in a big way. You sold BTCC in 2017, as you mentioned. Well, any kind of thoughts on what you see out there now, maybe in China specifically, and then kind of overall?
So I like them all, but I don't put my money on any of them. So that's a sort of summary. Yeah. Well. So obviously you could put small amounts of money on there, but definitely don't put your stash on any exchange. That's my word of wisdom to the people. I know people still do that. I don't know why they do that. It's just like, basically, unless you're trading 100% of your net wealth, you shouldn't have your coins on exchanges. Only have whatever amount you need to have on there for your exchange purposes, for your trading purposes, right?
Yeah.
And so there are a lot of them. I don't want to name any by name specifically, but it's good to see that they're all getting more and more regulated. But unfortunately, as many of them are getting more and more regulated, still more are coming onto the scene, which are fly-by-night operations, which are very scary and very dangerous. Very unexperienced people or people with not the best intent. So eventually they run away with your funds and stuff like that. So it's a little bit scary.
Yeah. And on that regulatory side, those obviously something that you had to be, the BTCC had to be on the ball about, constantly
Yes.
through the years that you ran it. Any insights on that process in China, and if it's different there than it is in other places in your view?
Yeah,
and
it's
maybe
a
how
little bit
it's
different.
yeah
Let me explain this. I'm gonna maybe dive a little bit into politics, but not overly. It comes down to how the country is run politically, right? Because in a democracy, essentially the laws are created by the Congress, by the legislator, which are elected by the people. So eventually, in all democracy, eventually the law reflects the will of the people. That's why in many countries today, you have legalized marijuana. If people want to smoke marijuana, well, so be it. Then the laws will eventually cater to that. One day, maybe everyone wants to smoke, smoke crack, cocaine. Then they'll legalize it. But maybe that won't happen because there's not enough people who want crack and cocaine. But the point is, with marijuana, if enough people want it, it becomes legal. And it's legal in Nevada, it's legal in many countries in Europe, it's legal in starting to be many states in the US as well. Okay. So this is nothing about whether I want to smoke marijuana. It's just the fact that the will of people want it. So same thing for Bitcoin. If the people want to legalize Bitcoin, whether it's for payments, whether it's for as money, whether it's for as a college retirement savings investment, then it's going to happen. That's why I have ultimate confidence in the US system that Bitcoin ETF will eventually get through. Bitcoin as savings for IRA, for college savings, it will happen. And right now we already see Bitcoin custody being able to be done by banks, right? That's very exciting. So that's going to happen as well.
The ever-elusive
ETF,
does that happen this year? Or does that happen in the next 12 months?
Maybe not this year. It happens in the next 3 years, I think.
Next 3
years. It may not happen in the next 12 months, but it happens in the next 3 years. I mean, yeah. Anyways, so let's move on. So for China, the challenge is this. The challenge is the laws in China are set by the party, by the government, central government in Beijing, and unfortunately, it's a single party system there. So, and until that party responds to the will of the people, then the law will not respond to the will of the people. Does that make sense? So that's a disconnect there. So if the people want Bitcoin exchanges to be legal, but it doesn't get through to Beijing, then it won't happen. So that's why if you're doing business in China in a regulated environment, in the end, it's not about what the people want. It's about what the guy in Beijing wants, right? So
Sure.
So you better pick a business, an industry where you have confidence that that's what the government wants. So for example, surveillance and whether it's surveillance technologies, that's obviously very, very popular in Beijing. So those kind of businesses are taking off like crazy, right? Whether it's facial recognition, artificial intelligence, facial recognition, mass surveillance, that kind of stuff, like even payment apps, right? Payment apps that are centralized. I mean, that has gotten a lot of government support, but there's only be a few winners. So it's not going to be a lot of fair competition for that.
Yeah. And kind of part of your next act, I guess, you're, as you said, you started in mining and the exchange business very early.
Yes.
You've kind of transitioned into kind of a hardware security type of business. Talk a little bit about that transition.
Yeah.
Why this is what you're doing now, I guess.
Yeah. So I sold my exchange company in 2018. So 2 years ago, almost 2.5 years ago. So I took a year off, and during my year off, I was still participating in the industry, going to a lot of conferences, giving talks and all that stuff. And by the end of 2018, I realized there's one thing that has not been solved, which is how do we give normal people access to Bitcoin and cryptocurrency in an easy way, right? The only way to store cryptocurrency, hold it, is in a wallet. And there has been a plethora of wallet solutions, whether it's hardware wallets, electronic wallets, to custodial wallets, mobile software app wallets, as well as desktop PC wallets. And of course, we have the classic exchanges and custodial wallets. So it ranges from very technical, very difficult, very geeky technology, computer chips and cables and pin codes and passphrases, to something very simple like opening an account on an exchange or opening an account on a custodial wallet. But regardless, I felt like there wasn't a great solution for the truly new person. So what we created was, I have one in front of me. We created this stainless steel. It's called the Rio Series Bitcoin wallet. And it's a non-electronic. So what's special about this is we made this into a non-electronic device that stores cryptocurrency. In essence, what it is you can peel off the top sticker, and there's a private key. There's an encrypted private key underneath here, and of course, there's also a passphrase that goes with it at the very bottom. You scratch off the bottom for a passphrase. So the point is that with this device, you can store Bitcoin and cryptocurrency on there in a sort of non-electronic inert format. And it gets locked into this account. Only you, the owner of this wallet, will have the exclusive control because you have the passphrase and the private key. And then you can store it for years. I mean, I think my wallet is the only wallet in the world that's designed for 20 years of longevity. Or think about that. Think about your apps, think of your desktop clients, think about your hardware wallets, think about your custodial exchanges. Which wallet can you store Bitcoin in there and be confident that you can have it for the next 20 years? Right? Certainly for exchanges, I mean, some will be around 20 years from now, but it's a crapshoot in terms of which ones will go bust, which ones will go bankrupt, which ones will go get hacked. And then the hardware wallets, I mean, not even 5 years. I mean, think about hardware wallets, the ones, do I have any examples? I have some examples. There's some examples. I don't want to name any brands, but some look like this. You know, some look like this, a USB drive. And some look like cards, right? Some are cards with, you know, NFCs chips and Bluetooth chips and so on and so forth. I think those devices, they look great. They look high tech today, but the question is, what about the compatibility? What happens in 3 years? What happens in 5 years? Do you have to flash the ROM? Do you have to upgrade the firmware? Do you have to, you know, reassemble the battery because the battery started leaking? You know, stuff like that. So I really want to make something that's really long lasting, that you can hold and keep it in a safe and hide it under your bed mattress somewhere for 20 years. You can literally in a time capsule, drop some Bitcoins in here, and come back 20 years from now when the Bitcoin goes up to $1 million, and you can have something that's really worthwhile in here.
Yeah.
So it's really easy. The key thing is, I forgot to tell you, the key feature of this is no setup. No setup. That means that you buy it, you open the box, you can use it straight out of the box. You don't need to configure anything. There's nothing to back up. There's no passphrase PIN codes. So even if you die, if you get hit by a bus, you can transition this to your next of kin, and they can have the Bitcoins, right? So that was very important to me.
There you go. And you know, I guess there are trade-offs. However you decide to store and access your Bitcoin, there are going to be trade-offs. You've gone this route. What and your company is based partly in China, partly in the U.S. Can you talk a little about that? You know, you've run businesses in China for a long time. Do you feel differently about that now, and how do you approach it in 2020 versus 2011, I guess?
So I moved to China in 2006. So I've been in China for a long time. For what is it?
You're Walmart's 14. CTO in China.
Yeah, I was Walmart's e-commerce VP of technology, actually. That was in 2012, 2011, 2012. And then I got into BTC China, got started with that. So I've been in China for many years. I started, you know, BTC China in China. And for Ballet, for this company, our global headquarters is actually in the US in Las Vegas, Nevada. That's our global headquarters. But I also have a large team in China, in Shanghai, actually. So we have what we call a development center, R&D center in China. We have about 20 people there. And we have some more people in Las Vegas. So the software and all that is done in China. We have a great team of software engineers, designers, and these are all people I've worked with very closely during my BTCC days. So I was very fortunate that they were able to come join me for this new venture. And then for Las Vegas, we do manufacturing, we do final assembly and packaging. The reason I mentioned this is because the two components, the electronic, what do you call the encrypted private key and the passphrase, these are two critical components for the private key, okay? So we don't generate the private key, but we generate the components for the private key. So these two components, because they're sort of critical, we actually generate them in two different locations. So you generate the passphrase in Las Vegas, and we generate the encrypted private key in China. So they get put onto the card in different steps. So that's why the cards, the stainless steel cards themselves, are sourced in China. So they go through China, we put the sticker on, we come to the US, and then we laser etch the passphrase. So that's why no one, not even myself, can see both pieces of information at the same time. So this is both for the technical sort of security aspect of how to ensure that this is really bulletproof in the sense of security. Yeah. And it's good to have a US-based company. I'm a US citizen, so I pay US taxes anyways. And so for our investors, US dollar investors, it all makes sense to have a US-based company. And then for China, it's just an R&D center sourcing for manufacturing. And then we sell this globally. So we actually reached a very important milestone this week. We're gonna have a press release in the next day or two. We just reached a milestone where we now have customer deposits reaching $21 million globally. That means for all the Ballet wallets we've sold in the last 9 months all over the world, the deposits cumulative have reached over $21 million US. So that's a very, very big milestone.
21. It's an important number. Yeah. And is there understand how y'all are handling the security aspect of this. There has been a little bit of pushback maybe on the trusted aspect of Ballet being in the middle. And again, there are trade-offs and all these things.
Of course.
So operating between the US and China overall, more than just kind of Ballet specifically and how the hardware is created, managed. How has working in China changed over the last 7 years maybe? Is any kind of comments on situation of having a business in China now versus 2011?
Yeah, China's a great environment. I'm currently in the US, and I plan to go back to China later this year when they open the borders, hopefully within a few months. My team is there. They're waiting for me to go back. Essentially, it's especially Shanghai as a cosmopolitan city, a lot of great people, very talented tech people, very smart, experienced, and also a lot of crypto blockchain industry people as well. So I've enjoyed working with my team. Of course, you have to learn the Chinese language. You have to be well versed in that to talk to and work with the locals. And in terms of business practices, there is still a culture gap between the Eastern philosophy of how business is conducted versus the more Western ways. So there are some challenges there if you're coming from outside, from Western world, coming into China to do business. But the most important thing is find a trusted partner, find someone that you inherently trust, that can help you, guide you through the process of working in China, doing business in China. And of course, this year, with the big changes of this year, with the coronavirus, the shutdowns and all that, and we saw the shutdown. China led the world with the early shutdowns in February. Yeah. The whole month of February was essentially gone, right? At the time, it was like, we're very worrisome. But now, in hindsight, taking these drastic actions, closing the borders, really helped China recover fast from the coronavirus, whereas much of the world is still reeling and dealing with it right now. So we'll see. Hopefully, there's a vaccine come out soon. But other than that, it might be a really tough year and next year. Yeah.
Yeah. So kind of that also the context of the virus. Are you seeing any shipping issues, in and out issues with anything related to that or the?
Yeah. Let me tell you about that. So because we make physical devices that has to be shipped from China to US for logistics, for manufacturing. So this is the first time for me to run a company with physical manufacturing and logistics aspect. So we had to do the formal declaration of all our raw material for export from China and import into the USA. And of course, that this year was the big year for the trade war, right? So we got caught in that. So our products, unfortunately, our raw materials and all that have been slapped with the 20% punitive tariff. So besides whatever the normal tariff is, they add another 20% on that. So it's roughly 25%. So everything we ship over from China to the US, there's an automatic 25% tariff that the US charges on that. And not only, the US is charging us money, is giving us crap about that, right? But not only that, but the China government itself, their import-export people are also giving us a lot of headaches because we're shipping to the US, because China and US are not on good terms right now. The exporting side, they're very stringent. They just like go through the documents. Like any small error, mistake, unintentional, of course, they kick it back, and they deny the export, and we have to go and fill out the forms again and submit it again. So it's been quite a challenge, and I know a lot of companies are facing that. It's just that they don't talk about it. But even for us, a small company, we're seeing a lot of the challenges.
Yeah, and a lot of kind of stopping and starting of negotiations and reaching points, and things can turn on a dime. That's tough.
Yeah, exactly. And it's true, because every other week or every other month, the trade talks either are slightly on the positive or slightly on the negative. When things go bad, it's funny. There's a lot of retaliation, at the lower level, in the sense that they just make it harder. You just make it harder for U.S.-China commerce. And it happens on the U.S. side as well. Like when we're importing machines, for example, the machines to do the laser, some of these are sourced from China. At least we tried to, and apparently laser etching devices need FDA clearance. FDA is Food and Drug Administration. And why are they involved? Well, because laser has the whatever chemical stuff, has a laser stuff, it can damage eyes. So it's regulated by the FDA. So if FDA inspectors go in, so we actually had a shipment. We had machines that when it came into a Las Vegas office from China, and the FDA inspection did not pass, and the machine had to get sent back to China. Wow. That was just a huge headache that happened 6 months ago. Yeah. So we had to source them from the US, like stuff like that. Yeah. Very difficult.
Any thoughts on DSET?
So to me, I'll pour some cold water on it, the Chinese expression. To me, it's just another form of the paper money. So if in terms of cash money, people think of coins and paper notes, right? Paper notes. And paper money traditionally used to be real paper, made of printed material paper they could tear apart, okay? Now, what they did in the last 10, 15, 20 years was they upgraded them to polymer. So polymer is a kind of plastic. It makes these really high quality notes that look great. Some even have transparency. They're tear-proof, okay? They're tear-proof. They're great. Many countries, European countries, the US doesn't have yet, but many European countries, Asian countries have polymer notes. My point is this. My point is the DCEP, the central bank digital currency, to me, it's just another form of that paper note that's in digital form. Because in the end, you're still talking about it's renminbi. You're still saying that it's issued by the central bank. You're still saying that the amount of issuance is once again controlled by the central bank. So more or less, the inflation and all that issues remains. The overissuance of printing of it remains. And then in the end, worse off is they actually can monitor the account, and they can set limits on who can transfer to who or how much you can transfer in a single day, and they could reverse transactions, right? So these are to me the real killers, that in the sense that they're no-goes for me, right? To me, that's not a true digital currency. I mean, they can call it digital currency for all you want, but for me, that's not the notion of a decentralized digital currency that I value in Bitcoin. Yeah, so to me, it's a different
points
beast.
where
It's
Bitcoin
much closer.
Really does differentiate itself. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So to me, that is probably closer to Tether and not even as good as Tether. Right. So at best it's Tether, but it's not even nearly as good as Tether, because Tether, at least I can send it to you without someone else's control, right? Without someone else telling us what I can send to you and not send to you. So
and Tether playing a pretty central role in what's maybe a narrative of this next cycle of DeFi here. Whether we believe in that or not. Well, cool. Well, Bobby, thanks for your time, man. Great to catch up and hear your thoughts on current events and current cycles and macro environment. Always good to talk.
Yeah, good. Thank you, John.